Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
That's nice. You're in the studio
Yes, I am.
with your work behind you in the background. Pretty cool.
Exactly. You may see my cat too. She's roaming around back there somewhere. There
Oh
she
yeah.
is.
What's your cat name?
Noodle.
Noodle. Where did
Yes,
this
so you may
come
see
from?
her in the background popping
Nice,
up time
nice
to
name.
time.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting the invitation and being on Salonexit. Super cool having you here today. How was your day so far?
Pretty good. Got my coffee, just hanging out, doing a little painting. Yeah,
Nice. You actually just started, right? What time is it in
it
Los
is 3.
Angeles? Nice,
3 p.m.
nice.
Yeah.
Midday. I'm after this, I'm going to sleep because it's already 11.
Right, it's late for you.
So I'm still like I'm going strong on coffee, but as you, the same as you, but for me it's the end of the day. Okay, so maybe let's go straight into the questions. I have a couple of questions, some simple, some more kind of philosophical. I hope you don't mind
Love it.
weird
Yeah.
questions.
No,
So
not at
maybe
all.
just to get a like gist of your whole practice, how were you introduced to art?
That's a good question. Taking me back.
Yeah.
So I think from a young age, I was always very interested in art. But I grew up in a really small town, and I don't think I had maybe the access or that permission, like social permission to explore it. So it really wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles. I actually started in interior design, and I feel like that was kind of my gateway
Mm,
to diving into art and painting more specifically. So it was kind of through studying design, architecture, that brought me to this.
mm. That's cool. Were you studying interior design at school, like uni, or
Yep. So
nice?
my profession is a counselor, but I always had an interest in design. So kind of got into that, and then that trailed into painting.
So do you remember any like moments when you were, for example, working on some um, interior design project or anything more in this side, and you had like ideas for how would you like finish a space or just a concept with visuals, or was it some sort of mix of ideas like
I,
this?
yeah, I think it's such a mix of I'll have it both ways of either feeling inspired for a whole space around just a piece, but then
Mm,
also the opposite of there's sometimes where I'll see a space and then think of, okay, whether it's certain colors, certain pattern, then that will inspire a painting. So yeah, I think it does. It goes both ways.
mm. So in terms of inspirations, do you have any like a personal inspiration in terms of like artists, maybe it comes from design kind of styles or just maybe periods, anything that inspires you to create the pieces you create?
Yeah. So very originally, actually, like one of the first starburst paintings that I did. And I actually don't even have it up or around. I don't even think I've posted it anywhere. But it has arches within it. I was very inspired by arches, just in architecture. So that I feel like was one of the first places that it kind of crossed over, just studying a lot in art history, but then also the tie-ins with interior design.
Mm,
So, and I still find that I'm playing off of the two of them.
mm. So like classical art, some sort of like classical architecture, like the
Uh-huh.
curves, the arches kind of remind you of
Yeah. Like
that's.
cathedrals,
Mm, mm,
yeah, more so like ancient, just basic
mm.
structures.
That's such an interesting concept, concept mixing the classical architecture with contemporary style, which yours is very original and kind of different to what I've seen. That's super cool here. Could you also speak a little bit to, because I went through your socials and everything, and I found this one story where you were describing the origin of the birds themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a story about you going on a walk, I think, and there was something going on with the sky.
Yeah, so I have a dog. I'll take her out at night sometimes, and there's just a spot that's close by where I live that I'll walk to the corner, and it has a really clear view of the sky. Now, even though I'm in Los Angeles, I feel like not seeing many stars,
Was that in Los
but the
Angeles? Sorry for interrupting.
no, yeah, it was in Los Angeles. Uh-huh. So
Okay,
not
okay.
really able to see the stars, but the moon being really bright. And I remember going back to my apartment that night and I wanted to kind of recreate this moon sky in some way. And I kind of just incorporated these star patterns into the moon, essentially.
Mm,
And that was really, truly the start of it. And then just expanded from there. I just loved the kind of free flowing nature of it, where it is such a simple pattern and I do it over and over and over again. But every time I'm doing it, depending on the different layers that are already laid, colors that I'm using, so many factors that can go into it that then for me, I see a lot of differences in between those and surprises that happen just with the paint pulling across and hitting different textures. And sometimes I'll notice different shapes. And even to this day, I'll be like, oh, I see a smiley face right there. And it could just be me seeing that. But I think that's one of the things where when I started, I liked the simplicity of it, but also then that effect of kind of having its own surprises,
mm,
even if they're just little things that I'll see in it. But that's what I think keeps it interesting. It's pretty simple to have it translate across different styles, and that's really what I've been playing with now is just how I can do new things with it.
mm. I had one point I wanted to weave into this question, but now it kind of popped. The second point popped into my mind when you were describing the experience, and I had this moment in like in my head where I had this idea where you went exactly through the same thing as Van Gogh, because your work in like in terms of the impasto and how you apply the paint is very similar to Van Gogh's. And the Starry Night, it was like probably the same kind of experience that he went on a walk or something and then wanted
Yeah.
to recreate what he saw. That's so beautiful.
And I think it's so funny because I there's definitely influences to my art, I think from so many different things that I still will make connections with. And so you even saying that of I wouldn't say Van Gogh was like an initial influence or something that I was like
Mm,
drawing upon, but I totally see, kind of those similarities, like you said, the night sky, like something as
mm,
simple as that, and just how I'm seeing it versus somebody else seeing it and getting that on a canvas.
mm.
Yeah.
That's great. And the second idea I pre-prepared where I had this thought where now that you said you see different patterns emerging, and there's this emergence aspect to your work in how you finished off pieces, how you just structure them, I guess, and the idea of where you find certain patterns like smiley faces or certain symbols in the work is like um, it's it's so crazy because it's represent and mimics how we view the world in general. Like for example, you see you look at the night sky and you see constellation out of this pure emergent it has this pure emerging quality where it's random, but at the same time you can find certain elements. So I thought I saw this kind of connection between your art just how we experience the world. Well, this is
Yeah.
quite interesting.
And I love how you say that, because that I think is kind of a great way of how I would sum up how I see my own art, and
Mm,
how I guess I'm hoping that it does translate just in different connections that people make. I know I try not to make anything too blatant or
mm,
specific, and kind of leave enough room for interpretation for other people. Not to say that I may not in the future. I feel like that is the fun thing about this style is, for myself, I can see it going in so many different directions.
mm,
And people will have they'll make connections with it that I don't even think of. Like, I remember when we were very in COVID, people were saying they saw COVID in my paintings. And, like, now I feel like people aren't in that mindset so much. And it's different things that they're seeing, like neurons,
mm,
or sea creatures. So even though I guess like the natural inspiration is the sky and the star pattern, I think that it can still translate and represent so many different things, which that's what makes it exciting for me,
mm,
is just all the different things that it can represent, even if I don't realize them right now.
mm,
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm always making new connections just with my own work every day.
mm. So, for example, when you develop a piece, is there a moment where you decide to follow certain pattern or anything that you see in the piece itself? Is it because I, for example, look at one of the pieces where it's like three quite monochromatic pieces, and one of them has this smiley face on. It's like a trip. Four pieces together. I'm not sure if it's like one piece, but there are like four pieces together, and one of them has this smiley face on it. Um, why the other ones? Oh, actually, now I see. That's funny. I now just noticed the other one has a cross on it, a like an X, and this other one has a circle, which I haven't realized
Yes.
previously. And I just wanted to ask how you decide on that on this piece. I will now follow this kind of a crossroads and go this
Mm-hmm.
direction.
Yeah. I feel like there's some pieces where pretty early on I'm deciding of, oh, I want to follow like this symbol, whether it is an X circle pattern. I try to keep it like very simple in its shape. So there's some where I definitely will kind of plot out that that's what I want to follow. But I would say a majority of the paintings I do start off as something completely different than how I originally
Mm,
started them. And I think I used to be more specific of, okay, I'm going to carry this out, start till finish, exactly how I envisioned it from the start. But I do a lot of yoga, meditation, and I have a lot of crossover in that too with my art. And one of my yoga teachers, in describing yoga, it's very the poses are very structured and have been done for a long time, but there's still that important aspect of play and curiosity, and kind of treating it like a kid and not being so hard on yourself.
mm,
Um, and so I feel like that has also carried over into my paintings. Is sometimes I'll be working on something, I'll get an idea on the spot, and I will just be like, yep, now I'm going in that direction. And I just try not to think about it too much or think
mm,
into it too much. Um, but there are certain times where I'm like, no, I need to carry this idea through. Usually I don't love the way that it's looking at the very
mm,
beginning, because it just needs the time to build those layers and really start to um, see it come together. So it's a balance. There's sometimes where I just am like, I'm trusting my gut on this, and I'm gonna now go in this direction. And sometimes I feel like I have to pull myself back a little bit of just like,
mm,
okay, keep going through with this idea, trust this process. And I think that's the other great thing about this style is there's really no mistakes that I can make. That's how I see it, as if anything, it's just building layers of texture that then will create probably a new type of pattern as I'm putting new layers over it. So there's really not a way that I feel that I can mess up a painting.
Mm.
So that helps.
Or maybe even the like redefining a little bit the meaning of word mistake or like a failure. Maybe all of them are positive, like a positive failure where it's not going exactly how you wanted it to start, but I created something new, like evolution almost.
100%.
Maybe I'll ask this question where um, if you had to describe your creative process using only three emotions, which ones would you choose? And maybe why, if you want to
Okay.
answer that.
Yeah. Okay. No, this is a good question. I like this. I do think this is gonna, these are gonna kind of counteract themselves, but
Mm,
there is a calming emotion that comes across for me. I think the process can be pretty meditative because I don't have to think too much as I'm actually doing it.
mm,
So I think there is a calming that comes with that. Now, to counteract that, I would also say it is can be a little chaotic.
mm,
So calming but chaotic. Just in the way that for some there really is no order to it. There's um, maybe pattern but not order. So I think that can kind of create this chaos. And I think in life, there's always going to be an element of chaos.
mm.
And it is finding the balance between the two. So I know that's only two. You said three. Let me see if I can think of another. I mean, kind of the emotion. I do just try to keep a sense of curiosity and fun and play to it. Um, so yeah, I think a calming feeling, a chaotic feeling, but then the curiosity there as well.
Mm. What's going to kind of emerge maybe in terms of the curiosity out of the pieces? Mm,
Exactly.
mm.
Yeah. And I think with each one, it is different. And it
Like
is one of the things where
different ratios of these three emotions.
exactly. Yeah, it probably is how all the balancing is coming together. Um, and it can change day to day. It changes each time I'm doing
Mm,
a different session. So yeah, I think for me personally, I definitely can see more of probably the feeling that's in it of like, oh, I can look back. This this one was a little bit messy, not to say
mm,
in like a negative way messy, but maybe just a little bit more chaotic. Could have been listening to a lot of music that day and really just letting the paint scrape across the canvas without too much thought to it. Versus, yeah, other days I'll try to be a lot cleaner with it and kind of keep certain lines in a type of order. So
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that you approach the certain pieces um, with different level of structure. What you just explained, where it's comes from, where it stems from, which is kind of you answered that question already. But that's yeah, I kind of noticed that when you some pieces. There are some photos in different stages of your paintings, and you can see that some pieces have this grid almost like pattern where you start with this clear structure and then you add a little bit of chaos to it, and yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it is. I'm usually working on, I don't know, probably like 10 to 12 at any time.
Okay.
And I think I'll notice that too. And some follow more of a pattern. They have more of, I guess, I have a certain concept behind them, and then some I really leave just pretty open. Like I have one canvas, the one that's hanging up here, and I always just keep that one hanging there because if I ever have leftover paint or anything like that, I just add it to it. And that one has become just kind of like the complete no thought behind it, just
Mm.
adding as I go and if there's leftover paint. And so that's been also fun too because there is absolutely no thought or structure behind it.
Mm. Whoa, that's such an interesting, must be such an interesting piece, like a melting pot of the entirety of your creative process, like an artistic career.
Exactly.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. Have you thought about, have you ever thought about when it could be finished? Like it reminded me a story. It reminded me a story of one of my art teachers. Like he was this really old guy making this. I think it was some sort of sculpture at high school. He was telling us this story about this painting that he saw that was like 15 centimeters, like I don't know, 7 inches thick because of the paint that the painter applied, and he was doing it for years and years. But I think he wanted to kind of tell us a story with some sort of like a lesson, artistic lesson. Now that
Yeah.
I think about it, this
Yeah.
accumulation of art. Have you thought about it?
I have thought about that. And I think so. This is the first one that I have done that with.
Mm,
In some of my paintings, I'll kind of say I'm done when there are no longer any cracks of that canvas or like first layer that I see. So it's kind of like I've filled all of the holes to a certain extent. There's other ones where I'll keep some of that there. I think it just adds a little bit more dimension to it, maybe. Um, but there's definitely ones where I will keep going. And for some reason, someday I am just like, okay, this one's done. Like, I think it goes back to that trusting process of I get a pretty strong feeling when I'm like, yes, this is done, or no, this one's not done yet. Sometimes I do go back on ones that I've declared as done and then
mm,
decided that they aren't done. But usually I don't know what it is. I just something about it where I'm like, yep, this one is now
mm,
done. Um, and I think it will be interesting. I've kind of how you've said, kind of this accumulating a certain time of all the different pieces that I'm working on. Um, I kind of decided I want to continue this. Of once I decide that that one is done, I'm sure there will be a day where I decide, okay, this is enough. Then keeping a canvas that is
mm,
kind of just accumulating the leftover paint from whatever pieces I'm working on at that
mm,
period of time, which yeah, I think is just a fun concept in itself. It's taking what otherwise I'd probably just throw away
mm,
and is still giving life to something and kind of giving light to multiple pieces or that period of time as well.
mm. I guess it's so it also suits your practice in general, this idea, because it's kind of like it's all about adding this little moments, creative moments. So in this regards, it's also quite interesting. I guess it might be truly finished once it leaves your studio.
Exactly. I
There's
know there's
some
been a couple times where I'm like, it could be getting close to getting done. I don't know though. It's
yeah. Um, and also what's interesting is at the end of the when someone is going to purchase it or you decide to hang it somewhere and definitely not do anything any more work on it. Um, wonder what pattern is going to emerge there, or if any is going to emerge. That's kind of interesting thought.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I
There is a
guess.
spot on it. Oh, I was just going to say there's a spot on it that I will not cover up. It is to me a very distinct smiley face from the same like pull of paint. Somehow it was like two open dots and this rounded circle. And that is like one thing of it where I'm like, I will not lay paint on that spot.
Mm.
I've like
That's the
determined that that spot will stay.
mm. That's so cool that you're seeing smiley faces.
Yeah,
Very
I don't know what
positive
it is.
way.
I swear it's always a smiley face that I'll see. I guess that it's better than seeing other things that may not be quite as pleasant.
Yeah, grumpy faces.
Exactly.
That's so nice, like a hidden kind of in internal optimist, like kind of subconscious optimism that speaks through your art.
Yeah. And I think it does. It just goes back to when you are viewing something, whether you've made it or not, you're pulling on where you're at in that moment. And I think the headspace that you're in, the connections that you're making. So I think there could be other patterns that maybe to me, I don't see anything in them, but then somebody
Mm,
else very clearly will. And I think that is the fun of it. Of I even think back to when I was very young, there was this building that had um, interior of that was wood grain, just like walls and walls of just this wood with all this intense grain in it. And to me, I just saw things. I didn't see it as wood grain. It was just, I'm seeing all these different things in it.
mm.
And that's another connection I've made just with my paintings of kind of drawing back on that experience, not necessarily trying to mimic it, but it's just been a reminder of
Mm.
kind of that thought of what you're seeing in even natural elements.
Have you thought about is this building still standing? Have you thought about making an exhibition? That would be so cool.
Maybe someday.
That would
Yeah,
be
that would actually be
amazing.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, like an origin of your kind of introspective, curious artistic
Yeah,
mind.
exactly. And not even knowing when I was that young that it would inspire me in this type of
Exactly.
way. Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, that's going back into the or maybe just lingering a little bit on the what came out of what and kind of this evolution. Have you thought about what would happen or where your practice would go if you switched medium, like do something completely different?
I haven't really. I feel like I've thought of possibly just different surfaces.
Mm,
Um, but haven't gotten into it yet. But I think that is, to me, it is the exciting thing about this style that, for whatever reason, I've landed on that I've like
mm,
deeply connected with is I really don't see any limitations with it. I think
yes.
there's so many avenues to go down and translate things differently with it by
Mm,
keeping that very simple starburst pattern of just
yes.
having a central object and just pulling away from it. So yeah, I think it definitely could transition into other mediums and
Mm.
yeah.
I had this vision. I must share it with you. Probably you had this already. You were experimenting with this on a, I don't know, thinking level, or maybe you did something like this but didn't share. But I had this vision of your art if it was in a mural way, put on like a giant wall in a building, or like yeah, it's just giant wall. It would be just mesmerizing, or seeing all these starbursts. That would be
Yeah.
beautiful.
I've thought of murals because I think that is I want to keep going bigger and bigger with it because
Mm.
I think it just allows, yeah, it's just a different experience.
Sharing it.
Exactly. And the one thing, I mean, and again, it's all comes down to play, and I'm sure if I play with it and figure something out, everything I do, I keep it on a flat surface to kind
Mm.
of just allow the paint to fall and set with gravity. And so I think about that of if it is something that's already freestanding like a wall, if I could still do that on a vertical surface, or maybe it would be just having to do it on a flat surface and then applying it to the vertical surface. Yeah, definitely
That's
different
cool.
avenues to go down.
That's yeah, stay tuned, people. That's very interesting.
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to seeing the experimentations and all the pieces in this style and future iterations. Oh, and I would like to ask you one last question. The most philosophical question you can ask, which I think we should ask more. We don't ask enough, which is what is art?
Oh, what is art?
Yes.
I feel like everything, anything, nothing. No, I
Okay.
would say, no, I would say to me, it all comes down to connection. Um, I think you can make art in a solo sense and it's still art, but I think a lot of the beauty does come from sharing that and again different connections. I make that point in my paintings of it will turn out different how the layers are connecting with each other. And I think that's true with just art in general of you can connect with people and places across centuries, across there's not now, especially with sharing art. I mean, we're across the world from each other, right? And have
Mm,
made some type of connection through art. So to
mm,
me, it's just the connection and how you connect with something.
mm.
Um, that's I guess how I would describe it.
That's so well put. That's amazing.
About
Connection.
that
Have I
for
heard this before?
all night. Now I'll be thinking about it.
Yeah, me too, actually. It gave me a new perspective, the connection thing. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I think everybody can have their, I think that is really where the beauty is
Mm,
how everybody's different life experiences, um, every little tiny experience that makes a person who they are, and just what they connect with, how they connect with it, hate it, love
mm.
it.
The
I
reconnect.
think it's so special.
Yeah, we kind of reconnect with the history. We reinterpret stuff, which is in a way like a reconnection or connection, re-establishing the connection, the neural patterns people see in your art. That's all about connections. That's so amazing.
Exactly. Yeah,
Embodiment
yeah, I
of
know.
what is art.
Hmm. That's why when you
That-
said some philosophical questions, I was like, sure, let's get into it because I swear I'm always like, that's how my headspace is, especially when I'm
mm,
painting. It's
you can
making physical connections, but also mental,
mm,
emotional, all of it.
you can definitely see it in your art, and yeah, it's amazing. Many thanks for the talk.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with you.